We continue now at the top of Daf Peites Amar Aleph Meseches Babba Kamma. This is Babba Kamma Daf 89a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought the Takanas Usha. The Takanas Usha is, let's say a woman brings Nichse Melug into her marriage and she tries to sell that property. Again, that is property that the husband has the peiros. He has the fruits of that property. Even if we hold that Kinyan peiros is lav ke Kinyan haguf dami, still the Takanas Usha says that if she tries to sell that property, that sale is not going to be a good sale in a situation where she dies before the husband, meaning in a situation where she ultimately doesn't get the property back because she died first. So the lokeach as well, when the husband dies, the lokeach is not going to be able to get that property. And the Gemara now says that we have a proof from a brisa to the Takanas Usha. The case in the brisa is as follows. Let's say two Edom come in and they testify that a particular woman already was divorced and she already received her ksuba. And the brisa continues, V'harehi tachtav u'mishamshaso, and yet we see that she still actually seems to be married to the husband. She's acting like a wife to the husband. And then it turns out, V'nimtzu zom, and it turns out that the Edom that came and testified that she had already received her ksuba, they were Edom zomim. And the general punishment for Edom zomim is kasher zamam. What they try to do is what they have to do, so they tried to make her lose the ksuba, so therefore they should have to pay her ksuba. However, the brisa says, Ein omrim yeshalmu kol ksuba, so we don't say that they have to pay the entire value of the ksuba, because there's not 100% guarantee that she would have received her ksuba. Again, it's possible that she would die first, she wouldn't get the ksuba. Ela tovas hanoas ksuba, so rather they have to pay what's called the tovas hanoah of her ksuba, meaning the actual value of what she had in the potential to get the ksuba. Ezo tovas hanas ksuba. So how do you evaluate the tovas hanoah of her ksuba? Omden Kamma adam rotzalitin b'ksuba shalzu. We do an evaluation. How much would a person be willing to pay for her ksuba? She'im nisar mala onisgarsha. That if she's widowed, meaning if her husband dies first, or if she's divorced, on that chance you're going to be able to get the ksuba. How much would you be willing to pay for that? That's really the amount that the Edom tried to make her lose via Mesa, because on the other end, if she was the one that dies first, Yerusha Bala, then her husband is going to inherit it. So in any case, that's what the brisa says. And so now the Gemara brings its proof. Now, if it enters your mind that there is no Takanas Usha, meaning to say that even though the husband has a Kinyan peiros in this property, still she is able to sell that property, we don't say that there's a Takanas Usha. So Amayir Shenabala. So why is that true? That ultimately, if she dies first, the husband will inherit. It's not necessarily true. Tazbin Ksuba Salagamri. Let her just sell the Ksuba, because again, she has a right to sell that Ksuba, and that sale is going to go through even if she dies first, if we don't hold of the Takanas Usha. And so therefore this is a proof that there is a Takanas Usha. She doesn't have the ability to sell that property, and therefore since she doesn't have the ability to sell that property, that's why we say that the only thing the Edom Zoman have to pay is the Tovas Hanoah of the Ksuba. But the Gemara responds, Amar Abaya says, Imamru b'nichse melug, what we said, this Takanas Usha, that applies by nichse melug. And what we're talking about over here, ksuba, we're actually not talking about nichse melug. Nichse melug is property that the woman, the wife, brings into the marriage, and then the husband gets the peiros of that property. And then at the end, again, in a situation where the marriage ends, the wife is still alive, so then she'll be able to get back that property. By nichse melug, she essentially is the owner of that property. So if they said that by nichse melug, yomru b'nichse tzon barzel, would they say the same thing by nichse tzon barzel, meaning by a ksuba, in a situation of a ksuba, that property that the woman brings into the marriage that's written into the ksuba, that's called nichse tzon barzel, and that really, she has no real ownership of the property. What happens is, she enters into the marriage, she brings in property, whatever that property is worth, she can then say, I want you to write that amount into the ksuba, and that amount you will owe me in a situation of, if, let's say, the husband dies first, and the ksuba is paid, or let's say the husband divorces her, and the ksuba is paid, it's that exact amount of money that the wife gets. The evaluation is made at the time of the marriage, but the property itself then goes to the husband. And if the property goes up in value, so the husband will get that increase in value. If the property goes down in value, then the husband will take that loss, but it's tzon barzel, it's considered to be fixed as far as she is concerned, and so therefore by nichse tzon barzel, there's no way that she's able to sell that property. That's not going to be possible, and because really the husband is the owner of that property, and that's why it has nothing to do with the Takanas Usha. The Takanas Usha would be relevant in terms of nichse melug, it would not be relevant in terms of the nichse tzon barzel. And Rashi explains, Vaharei Tachtov, again, the Edom Zomin, ultimately, they're testifying that there was a divorce and that she already received the ksuba, but we don't see this. It seems that they're still married. The Ivadai Nisgar Shal Yedei Edom Acherem, Kimishtachi Hanoch, Edom Zomin have a Mishalmin law, Kol Ksuba. So let's say it turned out that she actually was divorced. There are other Edom that say that, and it turns out that these are Edom Zomin, so then they would really owe her the entire ksuba, because then they're trying to make her lose the ksuba. Tabo Lafsude Kulamino, let's say these Edom are really trying to make her lose the entire ksuba, they'd have to pay the whole thing. Because then they would be saying that the ksuba's already been paid. You have a situation where she for sure should be getting the ksuba, and they're trying to make her lose the ksuba. Certainly they owe the whole thing. But that's not the case in this brayso. But now, Shema Ino Asida Lital Ksuba Saliola, maybe she'll never get the ksuba. Shema Thomas Vir Shena Bala, maybe she'll die first and the husband will inherit. V'nimtza Shlohayu Mafsidin Osa Klum, then they really didn't make her lose anything. Lafikach, therefore, says the brayso, Ein Omer Mishalmu La Ksuba. So we don't say that they have to pay the whole ksuba. Elomdim, rather we do an evaluation. Kamma Adam Rotzalita in La Miyad Bechsubasa Ala Safek. How much would a person be willing to pay right now to get her ksuba, but there's a suffix if he's really going to get the ksuba. If she's widowed or divorced, then he'll get the ksuba. But if she dies first, then the husband will get, and he will lose out, and whatever he paid. It's this amount of money, that's what the witnesses have to pay her, that's what they tried to make her lose. That's what we call tovas hana. That's what they're trying to make her lose. That if she wanted to try to sell with this tovas hana, she wouldn't be able to. That's what, again, they're trying to make her lose. Tovas hana kilomar davar mu'at. Tovas hana just means that small amount. And so then the Gemara responded, this really has nothing to do with the takana susha, because the whole proof is that if it would enter your mind that there's no takana susha, so why should it be that the husband would inherit her? Maybe she could sell the ksuba, but the Gemara says that's actually not true at all. Even if there's no takana susha, of course she can't sell, because we're not talking about nechse mulug here. We're talking about nechse tzon barzel, where she certainly does not have the right to sell it. Imamru b'nechse mulug, if we said by nechse mulug, shatucha lamochrin, that before the takana susha, she has the ability to sell nechse mulug, v'ein habal motzi miyad halakuchos, and the husband cannot take it away from the lakuchos. Shareim pichsu lavim hosiru la, because there, by nechse mulug, if it would go down in value, that's actually her loss. If it goes up in value, that's her gain. She really is fundamentally the owner of the property, and that's why before the takana susha, you say over there by nechse mulug, of course she has the ability to sell. But that's only true by nechse mulug. Yomer b'nechse tzon barzel. Do you think that's true? Do you think they say that by nechse tzon barzel, b'chsubas and nechse tzon barzel, again, that's property that she brought into the marriage, but then they wrote it up into the ksuba that it's owed to her in the event there's a divorce or in the event that the husband dies. So that's written as a value into the ksuba. Dehainu nedunya shechnisa lo b'shuma mi beisavia. That's called nedunya, that she brings into the marriage, and it's evaluated. She's bringing it in from her father's house. So we write that value into the ksuba. Umakabel olav chasan achrayis. In that case, the husband takes upon himself achrayis to pay that value. If the property goes down in value, it's his loss. If it goes up in value, then it's his gain. That's what we say in Yavamas. Nechse tzon barzel, when we call it nechse tzon barzel, that means nechasim ha'omdim ba'achrayis ha'mekabel l'shalim ke'ein barzel. It's called tzon barzel. The idea is that it's property that the person, in this case the husband, takes achrayis, like that it's like iron, it's like metal, it's going to be a fixed amount. Barzel zeshu kashalios poches. Barzel is something that doesn't really deteriorate. V'hasam v'adai lo matzi mezavna. That certainly, there's no doubt that she's not able to sell the nechse tzon barzel. That's why it makes sense what the Bryce is saying, that we evaluate it based on tovas hana. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaya says, Tovas hana, now that we mentioned this idea of Tovas hana, that the woman can sell her rights within the possibility of collecting the ksuba, Hoel Vasal Yadan, so since we're discussing it, name of Bamil, so let's say something about it. Tovas hana li'isha have. This Tovas hana, when let's say she does sell this portion, these rights that she has to the ksuba, she actually ends up getting that money, whatever money is paid by the lokeach for the Tovas hana she has in the ksuba, she gets that money. Because if it enters your mind that that money actually goes to the husband, so then that wouldn't make any sense over here. Leimru la edim, because then the edim can say, my afsadinach, meaning these edim zomamin, that they testified to try to make her lose the ksuba, and we're saying that they don't have to pay for the whole ksuba because there's a possibility she would never have gotten the ksuba. They only have to pay for that small possibility. So then the edim can say, what do you mean? We didn't make you lose anything, because even the tovas hana is not really yours. If you were to sell that tovas hana, what did we make you lose? had you sold the tovas hana, that small portion of the possibility that you're going to get a ksuba, the husband would take it from you. Clearly, the husband is not entitled to the proceeds from that sale. Otherwise, what we said above in the brisa wouldn't make any sense. The Edom Zomamin wouldn't have to pay anything. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Shalman says, it could be not. It could be that the tovas hana goes to the husband, but still that's considered a loss to the wife, misham de'ika ravach beisa, because if it would be sold, even if it went to the husband, it would be an increase in wealth in the household in general, which she certainly would benefit from. Rashi explains, tovas hana, isha hamocheres ksubas al acherim betovas hana. Let's say you have this exact case, a wife sells her ksuba to others for the tovas hana, for that benefit. V'hadamim shalahin, the idea is the money really goes to her. Vein labal bahen klum, and the husband doesn't get anything. Otherwise, why are we making the Edom Zoman pay? And the Gemara says, no, Ravach Beisa, there's an increase in terms of the wealth of the household. Afilim habal notlin, even if the husband technically takes it, Noach liisha lamocher b'chayeh, might still be good for the wife to sell it in her lifetime. Kadei shetei parnasasa mitzuya bebeisa berevach, that way there'll be plenty of money in the household, so there's no proof either way. But the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Hilchas of the halacha is, Tovas hana l'isha, the Tovas hana does go to the wife, V'yein habal ochel peiros, the husband doesn't even get the fruits from that. Let's say she invests that, she has property and it produces peiros, the husband is not entitled, she's fully entitled to the Tovas hana. My time, and what's the reason? Peira takinu le rabbanan, because the rabbanan say that he can get the fruits, let's say, of nichsei mulug, that he's able to get. But peira de peira, but the fruits of the fruits, so that lo takinu le rabbanan, that the rabbanan, they did not say the husband is entitled to that. And Rashi explains, Ve'ein habalo chalperos, the Baal does not get the fruits. Lo amrinan, we don't say yikach ben karka, that with that money he can purchase some land, vuo chalperos, and he's entitled to the fruits of that land. That we don't say, that would be considered peira de peira. And the Gemara continues, Ki aser Rav Papa v'Rav Huna b'rei de Rav Yoshua mibei Rav. When Rav Papa and Rav Huna b'rei de Rav Yoshua came from the yeshiva of Rav, Amri, they said as follows, Tanino le takana susha. In our Mishnah, it actually teaches the takana susha. Why? Because what does our Mishnah say? Ha'evid v'ha'isha pegiyasan ra. It says that by an evid and an isha, we're focusing now on the isha, by an isha, pegiyasan ra, an encounter with them is bad, meaning hachovel behen chayiv, meaning if a person injures them, that person has to pay. Behem shechavlu ba'acherim peturim, but if they injure others, they don't have to pay. And the idea over here is that the isha, the wife, she doesn't have property of her own, and therefore she doesn't have to pay. And so the Gemara now says, V'salka daitach lesel takanas usha. Now, if it enters your mind that the takanas usha does not exist, and if there's no takanas usha, that means that a wife is able to sell the nechsei melug, and regardless whether she dies first, whether she doesn't die first, it doesn't make a difference. The sale is going to go through. So if that were the case, there was no takanas usha and she could sell, so then tasbin nechsei melug, so then she should have to sell her nechsei melug, and then she should have to pay. Let's say she injured someone else. That's how she should have to pay. She does have money. But the Gemara says that's not a good argument. According to your reasoning, that she should have to sell the nichsei mulug if there's no takon asusha, even if there was a takon asusha, let's say she's not able to sell it fully, because there's a possibility again that she would die first, and therefore the lokeach is not going to get it. But still, tasbin lenichsei mulug, betovas hana v'sitenle, she could still sell the nichsei mulug at the level of tovas hana, meaning she could sell it on the possibility that she does not die first, that actually the husband dies first, and then of course the lokeach would be entitled to the nichsei mulug. So she does have the ability for sure, whether there's takon asusha or not. Even if there is takon asusha, she has the ability to sell it betovas hana, and then she should have to v'titenle, she should have to pay the person that she injured. So ela de lesla, so you have to say rather the case in the Mishnah must be that she doesn't have nichsei mulug. Hachanami de lesla, so to here you're just going to say she doesn't have nichsei mulug. That has to be the only way to interpret it, and that's why again she's not going to have to pay if she causes that injury. It's no proof whatsoever to the issue of the takon asusha. But the Gemara continues along the same lines. V'tazbin ksubasa betovas hana v'titenle. Why don't we obligate her to sell her ksuba? There's a tovas hana. There's a certain value that the ksuba has, the possibility she might collect the ksuba. So maybe she should have to sell that tovas hana, and she should have to pay the person that she injured. And the Gemara says to that, Hamani Rabbi Meir, because who's the author of our Mishnah? The author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. To Amar Aser Lola Adam Sheyisha Es Ishto Afilu Sha'achas Below Ksuba. Rabbi Meir holds a person is not allowed to be with his wife even for one moment if there's no ksuba. and so therefore she's not allowed to sell that as well. But the Gemara says, 1 second, but what's the reason for that? The only reason why Rabbi Meir says that a husband can't be with his wife if there's no ksuba is because we don't want it to be so easy in his eyes to divorce her. If he sees there's no ksuba, it's going to be too easy for him to divorce her. There's going to be no cost whatsoever. So hachalo megarishla. But over here, in a situation where she just sells the tovas hana of the ksuba, it's not going to be so easy, so to speak, for him to divorce her because he's going to have to pay fine. So he won't have to pay her. He's going to have to pay the person she sold it to. Hachalo megarishla. Here he's not going to want to divorce her. The megarishla, because if he does divorce her, asu hanach the zavni gavul al ksuba. Those people who bought the ksuba, the rights to the ksuba from her, are going to come and they'll collect the ksuba from him. And so therefore that's not a good argument at all. You can't say that she can't sell the tovas hana of the ksuba. That wouldn't be part of what Rabbi Meir said at all. That wouldn't be prohibited. She should be able to sell the tovas hana. It's still going to be something that will dissuade the husband from divorcing her. And so then we're back to our question, why don't we require her to sell the tovas hana of the ksuba? And so the Gemara gives a different answer. Ela tovas hana mili ninhu. Rather, tovas hana, that's considered to be mili. It's just considered to be like mere words. It's not something of substance. Umili lo mishtabdi. When it's something just mili, meaning it's just like a potential amount of money that she can get from the tovas hana of the ksuba, that's not something that's meshubit in terms of her owing somebody money. That's not something she has to sell in order to pay, and therefore we don't require her to do that. But the Gemara continues, alam alo, but why isn't the mili? Why isn't that something that's meshubit to the nizik, that she should have to sell it in order to pay? Mili de mizdavni b'dinarin. This is something that can be sold for dinarim. It can be sold for money, and therefore she should have to sell it if she owes money to somebody because she injured the person. And so the Gemara instead says, ela mishum de Shmuel. Rather, the reason is, why is it that we don't require her to sell her ksuba b'tovas hana? It's because of what Shmuel said. The Amar Shmuel, because Shmuel said, hamocher shtar chov lechaveru. Let's say a person sells a shtar chov to his friend, meaning to say he has a shtar, and he's able to use that shtar in theory to collect money from somebody. Somebody owes him a debt, and then he takes that shtar, he sells it to somebody else. That other person now can collect the debt. However, Shmuel says, v'chazru machlu, if that original creditor who sold the shtar, if he forgives the debt, machlu, it is considered to be machlu, it's considered to be forgiven, and now that person that he sold the shtar to will not be able to collect. V'afilu yoresh machlu, and even if it's somebody who inherits, he's somebody who inherits that debt that could be collected, even a yoresh is able to be mochel that debt, and again it will be considered to be forgiven. And so therefore, since Shmuel said that somebody who's owed money can forgive a debt, that can be true over here as well. She might be able to sell the ksuba b'tovas hana, but then she can forgive the ksuba to her husband. But the Gemara says, so Amri, the sages said to that, big deal, who cares if she can forgive it? Zevune zavin v'sitin, let her sell the tovas hana of the ksuba and give it to the person she injured. And then if later she forgives the ksuba to her husband, so she forgives it, what's the difference? She still got money out of that ksuba, and she's able to use that money in order to pay off the person that she injured. And the Gemara says to that, Amri, the sages said to that, when it comes to something in terms of what's owed by her husband, she certainly will be mochel. And so therefore, to make it come out that it's going to be a certain loss to the person who bought it, that we don't want to do. To make it that she has to sell something, sell this ksuba b'tovas hana, and take the money and then use that money to pay the person that she injured, but we know 100% the person she sells it to is going to lose out, that we're not going to do. But the Gemara says, now if you will say a very simple solution, Zevina nihile lahu dechavla bebetovas hana, let her just sell it to the person that she actually injured, meaning she will sell this potential to collect the ksuba to the person she actually injured, and that actually will be a solution. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Peites Amud Beis.